This is topical issue, and I'm going to talk about a topic that has been very sensitive to many people. It began before we came. It's still there. It may still be there after we are gone. Today's topic is the end of the world. The end of the world has been prophesied about, talked about in many books. Some call it apocalypse. And we've come to learn the word apocalypse, meaning the end of the world. But apocalypse simply means unveiling. That's what it means. So allow me today to unveil a few things about this story we talk about, the end of the world, this thing we were born hearing, and this thing that we may die still hearing, because it has been there. With the rise of the Roman Empire, Rome, like we learned, was a village on River Tiber, which grew, started as a village, grew into a town, grew. Every place they would conquer, they would call Rome. They would call Rome. So it became an empire that began from Scotland to the boundaries of India. And because Rome was very powerful, it had a very good military machine, they were advanced in technology during that time. They are the people who started using cement. They had lifts that were pulled up by ropes. They had a pump for putting out water. They were building story buildings during those days because of the ash from Mount Vesuvius, Petalana ash, which we call cement nowadays. So after the building up of the Roman Empire, it was a very strong empire, advanced. They had peace for 1,000 years. 1,000 years of peace. The empire was so large, and from the teachings of the revelation of John, because by then, when Christianity began, when Jesus died and resurrected, the followers started a small group. It was, what do you call it? People used to call it a cult. A small group that wanted to live in the example of Jesus Christ. His disciples and it was, I think all of it was composed of Jews. But after some time, the small group infiltrated into the Roman Empire. And until 300 and something years after the death of Jesus, a Caesar by the name of Augustus embraced Christianity, and he began the Christian sect, the first church, and Catholic began from there. That is when now Christianity began as a Roman state religion. So you'll be given jobs on that basis. You'll be recognized on that basis because that was the king's religion. We talked about it in these other places. So after 1,000 years, the kingdom was too big. Rebellions began in Scotland, England. That is where Boudica and the husband were rebelling, fighting to get rid of the Romans. We got, now the Romans got their match in the Persian Empire in the form of King Akisha, who beat the Romans in war, captured 2 of its Caesars. The first one was kept as a slave, who Akisha used to use as a stepping ladder to ride his horse. And another one was killed by being given molten gold. Because he had gone that far, he said, "You have come for gold. You have fought us for gold. You have defeated you. So drink all the gold you can." He was given molten gold. So the empire started becoming weak. People are rebelling. The people from the areas that were once seen as primitive, the ones that the Romans were calling barbarians, were now becoming militarily mighty. And everything looked like it was collapsing. And those who had embraced Christianity started seeing the end of the world in everything that was happening. The eruption of the Vesuvius mountain made it worse. That time there were this tectonic movement. There was earthquakes within the Middle East, that the Rift Valley that used to pass through the Middle East, and also from the mountains. So there were wars because groups were rebelling. There was famine in some places. There are frequent earthquakes. And when Mount Vesuvius erupted and covered the city of Pompeii, or Pompeii, the way I pronounce it, and the owner says Pompeii because I saw in some sea worms under being called Pompeii when they discovered it. So Pompeii and Herculanus were covered by volcanic ash. The Pope at that time pronounced that the beginning of the end of the world had started, and it was like every life came to a standstill because everybody started expecting the world to end. It went for a while until the collapse of the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium, to the Muslims. And people thought the world has really come to an end. When Hagia Sophia fell, it's now a mosque. By then, it was the biggest church in the Christian world. When Hagia Sophia fell, the Christians felt the glory of God had left and the world was coming to an end. So now the teachings were, prepare for the end. People did not concentrate on many things. They were preparing for that end. After sometimes things picked up. Life went on. But then there was always this feeling that the end of the world has started. So you cannot be able to concentrate on what you're doing. Napoleon Bonaparte arose conquering. And he went and even passed through the valley of Megiddo, where it had been prophesied that the armies will fight. And when he came conquering, people saw the end has begun. There went Napoleon. You know about the Battle of Waterloo, or you can be able to follow that. And things started calming again. So people are talking of the end of the world. And they were not sure, again, of what was happening. The Industrial Revolution came, and the preaching was about the end of the world. There were some who started predicting, because others had come to learn that this world is not a good place. They wanted it to end quickly. Some people from the religious sectors wanted to make a quick buck, and total control of the followers. So the end of the world was a really trigger. Tell people, anytime, and they will do whatever you want. So as the story of the end of the world went, others really believed in that very end, and they started estimating, predicting years. So some, before the First World War began, were predicting the end of the world. And First World War began when Prince Ferdinand was killed. Historically, you can follow from where it began. And this was a war like people had never seen before. This was a war that came with machine guns, introduction of machine guns, introduction of tanks for the first time, use of balloons and beep planes to drop bombs from the air. And for the very first time, cities were reached, because at the time it was the young men who used to go. They would come and tell stories of the battlefield. Only the people who used to feel the impact of war were those who were defeated. By this time, either place was feeling the impact of the war. And people saw the end of the world. And they were told, this time, this is the time. And the First World War ended. Industrial Revolution was going on. Things were getting good again. And suddenly one of the soldiers who had fought in the First World War, several, because Hitler had fought in the First World War, Mussolini had fought in the First World War. After a short while again, Hitler wanted the revenge for Germany, for the treaty. We know how that one went. Those who don't know can follow in history. Mussolini rose to be heading the Italian government. And again, a bigger war erupted. This one was so fierce that everybody knew it was the end. Cities were burnt down, bombed down, real bombing. Some places, like some town in Germany, I was being told by somebody from Germany, what town was this? That was bombed, and the grandfather was telling them that those people who were there rushed to the lake that was there because it was burning. And those who went into the lake was boiling, so they boiled in the lake. And people saw the world was ending. Everybody prepared for the end of the world. And with the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki with the bomb, people knew the end was here. It didn't come, but now people wanted the world to end quickly because they had seen horrors unimaginable, and this world, to many, was not a good place to live. So they started predicting end of the world. Some people decided to make a kill, make money from the followers. So they would gather their followers, convince them that the end of the world was near, ask them to sell their property, bring all the money, then engineer a suicide, a mass suicide, but they themselves would not be in it. So they will end up with the property and the money of those people. People got so confused. The preaching became about the end of the world. Everybody, the end is now. The end is near. Like I said, nobody knows the end. Even when Jesus was asked, He said only the Father knows. That is what is written in the Bible. So those who knew started predicting, and they would predict. Now it came to when astrology had, science had gone to a higher notch. There were those who were talking of dark stars coming, a dark star is coming, a comet is coming, a meteorite is coming. This world, the earth, there will be the shifting of the axis of the earth. They were all wild stories. And it was like time had stopped. People did not do anything much. They were anticipating the end of the world. Then came the Cold War, where now Russia, America are competing, and now people are talking of how many times they can wipe out the world. And everybody was worried, and everybody was seeing the end. But nothing much happened. So the preaching became end of the world according to the revelation of John, apocalypse of John, and that's how it has been. What I came to realize as people from Europe found the new lands, they also found other religions that were there. And they came across the Maya and the Aztec history. Maya calendar had 365 days. Maya and also the Aztec calendar, similar to the Julian calendar. I think it's the Julian calendar that we're operating now. Yeah. Is it Julian? I'm not sure. But the calendar that we're operating now, I did not do that. So it was like we have 365 days. So what happened is they also went and they found that they had an end time story similar to what the Christians had in the Bible, to what Muslims had in the Quran. Because like I was telling you, Islam sprang up from Christianity and this other, and Christianity sprang up from Judaism. That one you can read in the past videos. So now, in the Aztec and the Maya calendar and end time story, they talk of 4 worlds that ended. The first one they say ended because of the wind. The wind blew up everything and the world ended. The second, they talk of earthquakes. There were earthquakes all over and everything ended. The third, they talk of ice and snow. It covered everything and the world ended. The fourth, they talk of water wiping out everything, just similar to what the Bible says. And the fifth, they say will be wiped out by fire. And that is also what Christians from the Bible had realized. So with these similarities, people saw now the end has come. This is it. But what they did not realize was that the Aztec and the Maya calendar was formulated by their cultures and their sacrifices, because these two cultures had human sacrifices. So after the fifth set of everything, they would have a big celebration, an end to that session, and they would in most cases, they will try, if it's your tribe, try and fight and get a chief or a king from the other place to sacrifice with others, celebrating that time. So the Maya calendar ended in the year 2000. That's what they were able to decipher. And from there was no continuation of the Maya calendar. So now people saw the year 2000. That was the year to be. But as time was going by, I don't know if it was 1978 or something like that, when Shumega 9 comet came and disintegrated on the biggest planet, Jupiter. Before that, some people had talked of that comet was coming, pieces of the comet itself was coming to collide with Earth. By then, the scientific information that time was not operating the way it's operating now. By then we had, was it Voice of Kenya or KBC? So I'd come to Kakamega, and one evening I was seated, was it 4 or somewhere like that? I can't remember the date, I can't remember. So the radio, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, the one who was there, started announcing, and he was in shock. And then he was saying, the scientists have proven that the end of the world will be on such and such a date, such and such a time. It was a shock. And we waited. There was never another announcement again. Nobody ever talked about the end of the world again. And I didn't know what happened. So until when I had grown up, that I knew there was a comet that came, headed towards the Earth, but then got captured by the gravity of Jupiter and disintegrated, leaving very big explosions. And they were saying if it had bypassed Jupiter, then it hitting the Earth would have meant that everything on the Earth would have gotten finished. So that was that. It was a shock, because for the first time when you hear and somebody is talking of the end of the world and the date is being given and the time, and that time nobody can, and by then we were still young. Hi, you've not even lived your life and the world is coming to an end. So towards the year 2000, everybody who knew about the Maya calendar and the Aztec calendar got prepared. There were rumors that computers and everything will come to a stop. Everything was going to come to a stop. Some were saying the earth will stop spinning. There were so many rumors. And people waited for the end of the year. Remember, by then I was in Nakuru town. That time, some people, everybody, even those who never used to worship, who were Christians and Muslims, became very holy, because they knew by the passing of this, the earth will be ending. So when midnight passed and the new year was celebrated, and the earth had not ended, those who used to drink, when drinking, those people went back to their lives. And the question remained now, 2000, this is the year that the Maya calendar was ending. What next? And we've been looking at people talking of the end of the world. Others conning their followers money, talking about the end of the world. Others keeping their followers scared because of the end of the world. But like I said, we should not be looking at the end of the world, because you don't know how long you will last. Live like it is the end of your life. Don't worry about the world. Spiritually, live like this is your last day. But physically, work like the world is not ending. So what happened is I managed to follow some people who had gone through that and also inquired what the Maya and Aztec calendar meant. And it was only after they finished these things that were happening, then you would start a new beginning. I don't know if they were calling it back time or back tomb or something like that. I can't remember the name properly, but an end to an era. So 2000 signified an end to a big era. Era not for mistake, era for a lifestyle, a leadership, a civilization. And so, when you come to every end, you have a new beginning. So the 2000 should have signified to the Maya, because they are not there, but the calendar was left. People thought because the Maya calendar ended in the year 2000, that was the end of the world. And also the church, because the Catholic Church, after 1,000 years is when these things happened. Towards the second 1,000 year, then everybody again was feeling, now this is it. Another 1,000 year, and the 1,000 year went, and everybody was worried. And then the second 1,000 year went, nothing happened. Still, there are people who are talking of end time stories, and it has happened in America. The Church of Koresh and the Grand Davidians, where they locked themselves up and burned themselves up when the police were trying to release those who had been captured by those people hypnotized by Koresh, talking of the end of the world. In Kenya, we had a massacre. I think you have heard of Shakahola massacre. And even this week, some people have been found again. They had started dying because they want the world to end. My take is, according to the book of Revelation, which talks of signs and they don't know when, according to the Bactam, not the Bactam, according to the, what do you call it? According to the religion of the Maya and the Aztec, there is always an end and a beginning. As human beings, we should be ready for an end anytime, because we don't control the sun, we don't control the earth. They are spinning, they are rotating. But God is in charge. We should think of life as if the earth is ending today. But we should live, follow up other things, new discoveries, improve life as things are going on, because we do not know when. People should not try to enact the scriptures, because even the Revelation, I told you there is not only one Revelation book. Go historically, there are about other 19 that are out. So we have the Revelation of John, there is the Revelation of Peter, there is what of Isaiah. There are other books. So that is the script that we are going by. But it does not talk about the time. Nobody knows. So for Christians, for Muslims, live like spiritually, like your end can be any time today. But pursue other things. And let's also not lose sight of God. It's God who is in control of these things. Pursue life. Worship God. Don't always be looking at this is the end, because your end may come sooner than the end of the earth. So be prepared for God. And people should not live in fear because of the end of the world. Live in faith. Pursue your life. and everything will be okay. If it ends, it will end. If it doesn't, we would have made another step, technologically, psychologically, and much more in faith. Have faith in your religion. From what I was doing, comparative religions, it's not only Christianity or Islam that keeps you in connection with. Follow the visitation. There were other earlier visitations. And God made us diverse so that we live in diversity. Follow yours, follow mine, the Muslim follows his, the other one follows his, with respect, knowing that if it comes, we are ready. If it doesn't, we are preparing for the next generations. That is how I view it. That's how I take it. So that people don't start committing suicide like they are doing at Shokahola. They are trying to die before the end of the world comes. Why don't you wait for the world to end with others? What is the hurry for? So that is my take. I encourage people not to be afraid, not to be scared, not to lose faith, and believe in God and know that it's God who sustains everything. And if he says now, it's now. If he says another 1,000 years, it is at his discretion. That is my take for today.